Get ready for a high-impact, scalable tabletop minis game with Battlescars coming to Kickstarter on November 2nd. And here to tell us more about it is Cory Heald, the creator. Cory, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Battlescars looks so cool, but why don't we let you tell everybody what this game is? Give us an overview of what it is and how it plays.
Sure. So it's a minis game. It kind of spans between, I guess, a board game and a traditional skirmish game.
Okay.
And one of the things that we wanted to do was make a game that was very scalable. And so you can, start off with just a few units if you want to jump in there and get a quick game in. And if you're one of those people that likes to take a whole afternoon, just, doing some epic battle, the game certainly can handle that kind of thing. So
That's awesome.
yeah. And we just tried to introduce a few new mechanics. We don't. We always like to bring something new besides just saying, "Hey, these are cool minis."
Right.
And so a few things we did is really try and enhance the idea of player choice.
Okay.
So in the game, you're able to swap out components. So that's something that is a major factor of the game, both in the mechanics of, hey, I want this short range gun, now I want to switch to a long range gun, or some kind of system, like maybe I want to support my other units now because I'm, feeling like one of my squad members is down, so I'm going to fill in the gap, that kind of thing. Also, the physical models change, which is something that we pushed really hard on for in this game. Because one of the things that happens in skirmish games is you end up spending a lot of time looking at the other person's cards, right? You're kind of looking across the table,
Yeah.
trying to see what they've got. How am I planning? Like, oh, I forgot you had that.
Right.
So in this one, every kind of tower, we call them, is in different categories. There's a short, medium, and long range. We
Okay.
also have systems and defenses. And all of those things, when you swap out a tower, the physical model can actually be swapped out in game. So it just drops in a little peg hole, and it looks like it's part of the model.
Nice.
And so that's something that is really nice because you can spend your time looking at, the game board. And while you may not know, like, hey, is that type of short range gun? The range of those guns is roughly, 1 to 3 hexes away. So you can be pretty confident in how you're moving and that kind of thing. So
Can you still paint your minis and paint once it's all painted, can you still put the pegs in? You just got to be careful not to
yeah,
paint inside the hole, I guess.
yeah. So I don't know if you can see
Yep.
this
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
right here.
Nice. Yep.
There we go.
And there's the guns
So
on top.
yep. So we can
Well,
pop that out.
pops in and out really easy too. That's nice.
So
Very cool. And so that
yeah,
represents the physical guns you have on that vehicle. And you
correct.
can swap those out during your turn, so your opponent actually doesn't know what you're gonna do. You can surprise them
Right.
with a new weapon array.
Yeah, we even have kind of a semi fog of war concept with that too, where the backs of the cards are just kind of generic. And so that way, when you go into your first engagement, um, the main cards, the tower cards, are all flipped upside down if you want to get into that kind of level. And even some of the vehicle cards, so not all the vehicles have swappable components, but those typically have variations. So maybe a short to medium range mech or a medium to long.
Right.
What we did is we made the tracker card, we call it, where it has all the data. If you flip it over, it has the generic abilities of both variants on it. And so you can move into the engagement without your opponent knowing which one you have because the model is the same. And
Right.
then you flip it over
Oh,
when you start to use it. So,
Sneaky.
so
nice.
yeah, so just some little subtle things to add some strategy to the game and kind of change things up a little bit. So,
That's so cool.
Yeah, I would love to know where the idea for this originated. Like, how did you come up with the idea of doing this sort of, this sort of world? Was this something that he'd been thinking about for a long time, or is it just sort of like all of a sudden just a spark and then you just got to work?
It started way back in the day, actually more of a video game concept, which was it was a video game called Roaming Fortress, which was the idea of a castle on the back of a dinosaur.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Okay.
yeah, and so with that, the idea was you had this big, moving thing, and as you went along, you could upgrade it with different towers and that kind of thing. So from that, it kind of evolved. At the time, I was getting my master's degree, and I had a game design project. And so what I did is I kind of took that into something further that I thought could actually become a board game concept. That's something I've been very interested in.
Okay.
And the very first one was actually made out of Legos. It was a ton of fun.
Nice.
Oh,
So Legos and Risk pieces, we kind of put them all together and kind of created this game. And then kind of evolved as we went along. I literally carved pieces out of balsa wood with thumbtack
Wow.
guns and stuff, which hurt quite a bit when they went through the balsa wood. Uh, and then kind of we got into 3D printing and kind of evolved from there. I was given a 3D printer over Christmas to use, and I literally had that thing running for 2 weeks straight and just
Wow.
printed everything I could think of.
Nice.
And so that was really nice having the physical pieces just to make sure that wasn't going to become too cumbersome. Was there value in doing that? We felt like there was. So that's kind of where the game got started, and we moved forward on it pretty quickly. But always felt like there was some things that were kind of missing. And I know some people, I've gotten Facebook messages and that kind of thing from people saying, "Hey, we've seen the banner, we've seen the game, we played it. Where is it? What's going on?"
Right.
And we just want to make sure it's right. Like a board game is one of those things that's hopefully timeless. When you get it out there, you want it to be right, and it's something that people can pull out, 5 years from now and still play. You don't get to just update the rules, for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
It's true.
so yeah, we kind of took a break and just kind of thought about some things, and that's where some of the new features came in, where we kind of simplified the resource system and also put a bigger emphasis on movement in the game, which is I think that's something a little bit unique when it comes to vehicle-based games, unless you're dealing with, strictly a racing, that kind of thing.
Right. So is this referring to when we were looking through your game and trying to understand your game before we met with you, I noticed a lot of the videos out there was advertising it coming to Kickstarter 3 years ago in 2017. So
Right.
did it not hit Kickstarter? Is that when you decided to take a break and kind of refine things, or what happened there? What happened in 2017?
Yeah, so that's when we felt like it was pretty close.
Yeah.
But there was just that thing that was missing. Ended up being a couple things that were
Okay.
missing. We felt like one of them, we think the game was getting a little bit too big. It required too many components, too many pieces, and we had a resource management system where literally every action you did cost a little token. And so you got all these tokens in the beginning, and you'd move them as you spent them.
Okay.
It was a cool concept, but what ended up happening is you could basically what we call overload or overdo a vehicle, and it felt kind of bad when you're on the other end of that, and you just got completely just destroyed. So that's one of the things that we modified, and then also defense, I think, felt a little bit like I'm just waiting to get hit at that time.
Okay.
And so that's where we added this new movement system, which actually uses templates, which is kind of a weird thing for a text-based game. We've had some comments even on Facebook of people saying, "Why do you have that?" But once you see it in action and kind of use it, you'll start to feel you don't have to use them, but it's a guide.
I gotcha.
But the idea is that movement is really, really key. So when you roll your defense, when you're being attacked, your movement has a direct correlation to how much damage you're going to take, and you can resist. So
Yeah, you've got a bit of a cross between, like take Star Wars X-Wing, for example, where
Mm-hmm.
it's all movement is based on the movement dials or movement tokens you have. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
have movement tokens, but you also have a hex grid. So you've
Right.
got a combination between those two games, and it's a very interesting concept to combine hex movement with length movement.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things, like an X-Wing, I actually play X-Wing. I really enjoy that
So do
game.
I. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. One of the things that's in X-Wing though is your speed. Typically, there's some things that change that, but most of the time, the speed that you moved is just about positioning. It's not about how hard it is for you to get hit.
Yes.
And in this game, um, the vehicles tend to be very large, and so often you get the idea of we're just, sitting up next to each other, just trading shots back and forth. And that was one of the things that was happening.
Okay.
Um, so what we did is we added this movement component that there's actions called boost actions, and those are template based. So you're more restricted as to the start and end of where the movement goes.
Gotcha.
And so it's really easy to see that there's little white dots, and then there's end black dots on the back side of it typically, and those kind of restrict your movement of where you can go, but they give you movement tokens. And vehicles have a max speed, which is on the card, and then when you get attacked, you can roll a die, and there's a certain symbol on there that will equal your speed, and that reduces your damage down. And so it really encourages movement
Okay.
throughout the game.
Right.
We also have a lot more obstacles than most games. I don't know if you noticed that from the
Oh,
pictures, but
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's chucked full of obstacles. Instead of like 4 things, there's literally 60 obstacles that come in the box.
Wow.
Oh.
And you don't have to use all of them, but it's really interesting because we don't have a front-facing mechanic because everything is turret-based. But with all the obstacles, it really starts to create this interesting mechanic of I need to move fast with all these kind of big vehicles and things. And cover is actually a thing, even though we're talking about vehicles in the game.
So I have to ask about your obstacles. Are they just cardboard obstacles on the board, or are you thinking of doing 3D obstacles?
Yeah, so I have a background in 3D, so I'm really excited about the fact of offering two options. And actually, during the campaign, we're hoping to have those finished up. One of them will be a papercraft mechanic, which is papercraft stuff that you could print and
Okay.
create your own obstacles. For those who don't have a 3D printer or don't have maybe the funds for it, but they still want that kind of 3D space. And we're looking at 3 different themes. So we'd have Destroyed City, the Canyon,
Ooh,
and then also just a generic kind of tech feel, right?
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, my background's in 3D. I'm the one that modeled most of the vehicles in the game, and from that, we want to have 3D downloadable terrain that you can get access to. And it's not something we're looking at charging for. It's just we want to support our community and kind of build
Nice.
that up
Give
with,
them.
yeah.
So that'll
So
be
That's
those
awesome.
are options to add once you kickstart the game. What will come in the box though is just like flat cardboard obstacles, or what comes
Yes.
in the base
Yep.
game? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. In the base game is the flat because there's so much in there
Right.
that
There's
it's
a
one of those
lot.
things.
There's,
Yes. And so that's one of the things where we had to say, let's offer these, kind of flat tokens that represent it, and it's still fun.
yeah.
But I definitely enjoy. One of the things we did is we actually did a little bit of papercraft terrain. We grabbed some molded rocks and even some train trees, and
Okay.
we put all that together in a scene. And it just came together so well.
Yeah, I bet.
And on the Kickstarter page, if you go down to the very bottom, you can actually see some of we did some pictures of that, of just saying taking it further beyond the box.
Wow.
And it really has an interesting feel where you can kind of see this game going much further as far as the visual element of it.
That is so cool.
So let's talk about the actual different units in the game as well. How many different units are there? Do they play differently? And do we get a dinosaur unit? Like, I want to know if we have a dinosaur popping back into the game at some point.
Well, some people have said that the war horses, which is kind of the key vehicle, that those do feel like that they're dinosaurs, like mechanical ones. But no dinosaurs as of right now. Um, so, yeah, the game has what we call three different categories of vehicles. So the first one is the war horse. Those are that's they come in two different sizes right now. We have expansion stuff of up to four towers that could fit in them. The small one is called a Storm, and it supports two upgrade towers, a little more nimble, has built-in shields. And then there's the big one, which you see behind me here. That's the Titan. That's kind of the, main, everybody wants one of these type thing.
That's the one that kind of looks like a dinosaur to me.
Yeah.
It's actually walking too, is it not?
It floats. They kind of hover just above the ground.
Okay.
And so
like
that's
the dinosaurs did.
Of course.
Yeah.
Just like dinosaurs. That's
just
right.
like dinosaurs. They all hover. The big war horse is nice because you can start to do some things with it where you can go heavy offense. You can go short range, medium range, defensive, support. It's the most flexible unit out there, and also the most heavily armed. So the war horse is kind of your backbone. You pick one of those. The one exception to that would be there's a quad leg mech that is kind of a hybrid between a standard unit and a warhorse, and that's something that people really enjoy, that model. And that one has one tower that you can change out, but then it also has built-in weapons, and there's three different variants of that one. So most of the models we wanted to really kind of extend what you're getting, and so you can have like a command version of it, or a highly aggressive one, or maybe a support version, or whatever it is. So we got the war horses, then we got what we call the heavies, and the heavies are they might be worth usually 1 to 2 points.
Okay.
It could be a light mech. The quad mech is a 2-point unit. We've got the Bulldog, which is one of our favorites. It's just this little heavy, stocky little truck. It's kind of interesting because it gets what's called a fixed tower. So the game comes with a tremendous amount of upgrade towers, and when you start the game, you can't swap it out during gameplay unless there's a card that lets you. But you can put a tower in it, so it customizes that unit. So you could have 2 or 3 of them, and they all could do different things.
Okay.
So it's really kind of leveraging the mechanics in the game.
But those ones are set for the whole game, for that campaign.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Whereas the other vehicles, you can swap them out during game.
Correct.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, you get what's called your storage, and from that, one of the actions you can take is actually swapping a tower out.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then the other it's kind of a late addition, but we really felt like we wanted in there is it's a drop ship, and that it's a pretty large air vehicle, and that can actually pick up smaller units, bring them into battle, and drop them down, and it's kind of unique in that it uses some of the upgrade cards that are specifically system or defensive oriented. So they might be a support actions, repair, or defending other units. And so you can equip those types with it, but you can't equip the more aggressive type, weapons.
There's a lot of units in this game. That sounds awesome. Now, do you, like any of these games, you mentioned points, so you have a certain set of points you can use to create your army for that game. And so each of these have different point values. What's your point value going into the game? How many points do you have to spend to start your game?
Yeah, so that's one of the things when I mentioned being flexible, that the game really, I feel like that's one of the changes we made to the game, is allowing it to grow and be bigger if you want to. So a small skirmish, like an entry, let's get started in the game, is typically 5 points.
Okay, not too many. All right.
No. And so a warhorse, the kind of that key piece, is typically 2 to 3 points.
Right.
And then the heavies are 1 to 2 points. And then a squad, which squads are kind of interesting in how we dealt with them. But a squad is usually 1 point as well. But that's 2 to 3 small units that are in a squad.
So you're only going to get maybe 3 units in a 5 point game.
Right, right.
Okay.
Now, we typically find that as you get into it and you're comfortable with the game, going up to around 7 to 9 points is kind of that sweet spot of I still want a fast-paced game, but I want some flexibility.
Right.
Um, but you could certainly go in the box. You can go, pretty high.
Hmm.
Um, you could easily do 15 points in the box for both sides, and that's out of one box.
That would be a very long game.
Yes, yes.
All right,
So
what's the craziest game you've played? What is I don't know, what's one of the craziest things that happened in a game that you'll never forget?
Oh boy. Um, I think one of the things that that's in the game is a thing called damage events. And so when you take damage, like your armor value gets reduced to 0, you roll dice, which causes a damage event. And with that, you can lose your towers. You can do all different kinds of things. One of the things is explosions. And so we had a group of a warhorse that had support units around it, and we ended up ramming the enemy's warhorse, which caused an explosion, which caused a damage event, which then caused additional damage events, and ended up killing all 5 units,
Oh
including the
no.
one that hit it,
One hit. Well,
just because it was this kind of
Chain
cascade type thing. Yeah,
reaction, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So there's some pretty cool events that can happen like that. That's pretty rare that it happens that extreme,
Yeah.
but
but
it
it can,
was
which
one of
is
those
so
memorable
cool.
things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
So
That's
tell
awesome.
us about the future plans of Battlescars. Once your Kickstarter's complete, do you have expansion plans? Do you have add-ons? Do you have stuff that's stretch goals that you're putting into the campaign that are going to add new content?
yeah. So one thing that's kind of unique with the game is that there's no factions. Almost every game I know of has them,
Right.
but we
Yeah.
decided to
Yeah.
pull that out, and so you kind of live through your team captain, which we've been posting some stuff recently about some of the more, I guess you could almost think of them as WWE meets race car drivers meets generals, right?
Okay.
They're kind of
Yeah.
all stuck together.
Right.
Um, but your team captain kind of gives you your personality, but you when you build your team, it's more like you're going shopping. You're building this mercenary team, and you're not restricted by anything. So you're like, I love that tank. I want one of those. I want that,
Right.
and you kind of
Okay.
put this thing together. I will say this: in all the matches we've done, we have never had a match where the two sides were duplicates of each other, even though you have freedom to do whatever you want.
Right.
Everybody still builds a different team.
Yeah. So where I was going with that is that instead of factions, we have manufacturers. So think of, Ford, Chevy, Honda, whatever. That's kind of what's in the game when it comes to the different types of vehicles. Right now, we have Kodiak, Lancer, and we have Vanguard. Those are the three manufacturers that are in the game. As far as expansions, we have a fourth group that we'd love to bring in, which is called Scrap Jackals. They
Love the name.
basically, yeah, they basically went out and after if you get into the lore of the story, there was these big wars that happened. That's kind of how everything filtered down into a more streamlined version of it.
Right.
Yeah.
These people went out and captured all the stuff and collected all these things and kind of cobbled together vehicles. So they'll be typically a little bit more prone to crazy things happening. But that's a whole other faction that's in there that we'd love to bring in. And just like car companies release new models every so often, the idea was that we could have new variants of vehicles come out as well as whole new models in a sense of, hey,
Nice.
here's the new, whatever warhorse or the new
Right.
mech. So we definitely have plans to kind of keep expanding it. Um, and then the other area we want to explore is kind of the pre era of the game. So right now it's kind of a more, I guess, civilized combat where people don't die. Most of the guys are all like, they're at the bar drinking together, and then they go and blow each other up, and nobody dies, maybe get hurt, but that's about it. And then they go and hang out again, and it's kind of more of a sport kind of feel.
Gotcha. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
But prior to the game, and comes through in the video we did, it was pretty chaotic and pretty terrible. But we also want to kind of explore that idea of like, what about infantry? What about more of a campaign type mechanic, that if you want to get into that kind of thing and go into more of a strategic, I guess, battle, we want to explore that a little bit more. And so we've got some writers that are on tap right now that are looking into some ideas of some campaign type mechanics. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of stuff in Battlescars. It's a huge game. You've got so many models, and the terrain is just like, you've just got tokens and everything galore. I've seen the list of items there, and it looks incredible. So it's now finally hit Kickstarter after you've probably had people waiting years now, because you've been modifying this. You've been ready to launch, and then you modified it again. But now it has finally hit Kickstarter. You know what, Cory? It sounds amazing. I can't wait to see this game in real life. I can't wait for it to become reality. Good luck on your campaign, and thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, and hope you all head out to Kickstarter and back Battlescars, and also subscribe to OMG Nexus. Thanks a lot.